this, or can you hear me this way?
I can hear you that way.
Can you hear me back there like this? Let's see how I can do this. Every time I hear that introduction, it's kind of like some other person, right? Because I take a look, and you only hear about the good things in my life as opposed to all my screw-ups, which I've had many. And as I was telling a couple of people earlier, that I've had more failures than successes. And at this point, I'm on what's called my up wave. And I've had many, like maybe one or two of you in this room have had some dismal failures. And as I pointed out this morning at a networking event, I've learned the most from that. So when I looked at what I was being asked to do tonight, I was, I have a lot of experience in many industries, and I said to our host, I said, well, what do you think the crowd would like to hear? What would you like to hear? And I guess the thing I could talk about tonight that could provide some value for you is my path to success. If you define success as a career, as a company that's financially solvent, and I generally make more money than I can spend presently, that hasn't always been the case. Usually it was for many years the other way around. My story is very simple. I grew up in British Columbia. I come from meager means. I moved to Surrey back in 1964. I ended up going to Queen Elizabeth High School. I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I thought that was the coolest thing because they seemed to make a lot of money. And that's what I thought. And I got to university at the age of 17 and discovered the Pit, and which is a kind of a bar. And girls. I discovered girls. It was an amazing experience. And I kind of pursued that for a couple of years and ended up in commerce, getting a degree in finance and marketing, which is basically the right brain constantly fighting with the left brain. But it's been serving me well because I can actually count what I sell. And in business, I think that's kind of the secret to most businesses. I actually quit university with 3 courses to go, and back then it was a 5-year program. And I actually quit, and I pursued my first business venture, which I still own to this very day. I went out and I opened a soup and sandwich restaurant, which was kind of like a Subway, before Subway was around, and I grew that brand across Canada. And the one thing I discovered is you should never give millions of dollars to a 25-year-old. Because that's what I was making a lot of money. And I was spending more than I made, which isn't the real secret to business. And I took the sandwich tree to the brink of bankruptcy twice. And I was in debt probably, I think at that point, about $5 million. And I was living in a $186 a month apartment driving a leased car. And the one thing I discovered about owning $5 million when you're in your late 20s, it's the bank's problem. It really was, because there's no downside. Right? And so they called my loans, and I worked out. I did eventually work that off, and my business survived. And it was, I call it kind of like good tries that failed. And my biggest lesson there was have a good accountant, because it was my brother-in-law at the time, and he sucked. I still love the guy, but he's not doing accounting anymore, as you can imagine. Then, and I pursued, and I had this voracious appetite to diversify. And I mean, I diversified. I owned a publishing company, tech company, an indoor go-kart company, which is the best $500,000 I ever lost. I literally did. I lost it in 9 months, but I had a lot of fun. I owned a software company with Ryan Walter. I owned an internet business, a web design business. I took a company public on NASDAQ. I was worth $125 million for 90 days. And I said I didn't lose my shirt because the only thing I did end up with was a denim shirt that said Wowtown on it. But at one point, it was like a rock star company. And that lesson was choose your partners carefully. Because I had a deal with my partners, and we were in this, and they believed that we were going to $1 billion. We didn't. Okay? It was part of that meltdown. And so, while I'm still doing all these things, I still have my other businesses. I've been successful in network marketing. I've grown my business, or I had grown a number of network marketing companies. And I like the concept of network marketing because I think if you don't have any money, it's the best training industry to go in, if it's the right one. And of course, you learn more about rejection, particularly if you're an Amway distributor, which I was twice. Love the business. But I met a billionaire through that business, and a very successful businessman, and was friends to this very day. But, you know, so I've had a series of businesses that served me well. And the big lesson through all of that was I had businesses that had residual income stream. I have a fundamental core philosophy. I do not invest my time and energy in anything that does not pay me when I sleep. So when somebody comes to me with a business deal, that's the first thing I do. You'll talk to me, but I'll assess whether I'm going to make money on that deal while I sleep, because that's what's called passive income. And that's why the time and energy I've invested my time in, whether it's royalty income, membership income, income trust, commodity trusts, bonds, anything that pays me every month, so that because at the concept, true wealth, you break out when there is money at work, not woman or man at work. When you exchange time for money, and most businesses today, you may be the president and owner of your company, but you're an employee, and you make enough maybe to get by, but you haven't escaped the bounds of financial servitude that our world puts us into. When you discover businesses that pay you every month, and you do not have to work, that's when you will accelerate your wealth. And I have literally been broke for most of my life. It's better to not be broke. Trust me. You can do things, you can buy nice cars, you can go on great trips, you can not go to work and don't stress out about how you're going to pay your mortgage if you have one. And the best thing I ever did was never got one. I do have a house, but not having any of this responsibility. But I had massive failures to get there. And so it was a series of bad decisions made by a teenager, because most of our careers were made by a teenager. You know, you go to school at 17, right? At university, and you decide you want to become whatever. That's a teenager making a decision. And I don't know about you, but most teenagers make really silly decisions about life paths. And so you change over time. So over time, I created a pool of businesses, some of which I kept. And I have an attention span of about 5 years. After about 5 years, I'm done. I do not like the day-to-day management of a company, although I'm good at it. I tend to try to get out and escape. And that's where I am with one of my businesses right now. And I've owned many of my businesses since the 70s. And the ones that were successful, that have residual income. I still get paid every month by my sandwich tree company that I own. It's not as big as it was, but it still pays me. It's like a friggin' bond, right? And so those are kind of things that I've discovered. And there's always new opportunities. Like today, the 21st century, to me, is the best time to be in business. Absolutely great opportunities. Huge risks are coming. I remember I was coming out here and I was chuckling to myself because the last time a financial company asked me to do a speech of any kind, and it was sponsored by the TD, and it was the Burnaby Chamber of Commerce in Hadley, and I stood up there and somebody in the audience says, well, so what do you think about this kind of this doom and gloom stuff? And this was in 2007. And they said, so what do you think about this doom and gloom stuff coming? I said, it's going to be the worst friggin' nightmare of economics that we've seen in your adult life, and the banks are behind it. I didn't even get invited back. The good news was, 7 months later was September of '08, and there was the crash. And anybody could have seen it coming if you knew what to look for. And during that time, my portfolio during 2009, 2010 increased, not decreased. I was out of real estate, I was out of stocks. And that's going to happen again, sorry. But a good financial planner can help you. Right? She's one.
Thank you.
But, you know, we live in an interesting time. And if you're employed and self-employed in your own company, you are in the best position over the next 10 years. We will have lots of challenges in the coming years. The stuff that you saw in 2008 ain't over. It was the prelude to the next wave of crap that's coming at us. It's going to be the sovereign debt, and you as business owners are going to be affected either in a good way or a bad way, depending on how you adapt to the coming storm. But there are great opportunities to be in business today, no matter what you do, if you choose well and select your customers. And I think and that's the way I look at things. And today, particularly, you can get, some people are coming up to me, and the power of social media, which I'm a big proponent of. Social media is just media, right? It's just the modern day form of radio, TV, and it's a network, except the power is in the individual. And I know it works big time. It's the best return on your money. People say, well, how much time do you spend on social media? I says, all the time I can when I'm not actually taking the order. Right? People say, well, is it really a good return on investment? I say, yes. I got an email today from the head procurement officer of Air Canada. They want Blenz coffee on all planes, or I get a chance at it. I don't know whether I'm going to get the contract or not, but it's because of social media that happened. I got another deal that happened today this morning. Who's not seen the green man? Those guys are, I just can't. No money would get me in the skin tight green. Maybe some of this stuff over here, but anyway. So this guy phones me up, and they're going to promote this PK line, which is Ryan Kessler, RK line, which is Ryan Kessler's underwear, which I think is kind of cool. But they contacted me because of social media, and they want to do kind of a thing around, and they want to do it at Blenz, they want to create one of these swarms and all this kind of stuff. And it was because of the social media. And that's huge because of the amount of power around their brand today, and it's all free. And today, if you're a small business, you're probably like I was when I was a small business, and I didn't have a lot of money, right? And so how do you market yourself? And how do you create the sales? Well, you get on social media and start learning it. The three that I use and how I use it is I use LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. And I don't have a lot of time, but when I was coming to this event, some people saw me coming, I saw the retweets, and I just usually post to Twitter that automatically post to Facebook and my LinkedIn profile. I have 27,000 people who care what I have for breakfast on my Twitter account. I don't get it. I mean, that's amazing. And what I would suggest you do, this is really cool, we'll have a test. If you're tweeting or on Facebook, take my picture, send out it. If you hate what I'm saying, say that too. I won't be offended, and I'll retweet it. And you will. So use it, because it's a powerful tool that's underutilized. And a lot of people don't get it, and that's okay, but if you're a small business today, if you get it, you are going to have a distinct competitive advantage. And there's lots of great people in this room and in the Lower Mainland that can help you and coach you in those processes. And so I look at this as a great opportunity to protect whatever brand I want. And more importantly, you are a brand. You are not your company. I have 27,000 people that follow me on Twitter and about 10,000 that follow Blenz. They're more interested in an individual than they are the company. I get that, right? How many have had a career change at least once in their life? I know you have. There you go. Well, you see, you don't know what you're going to do, particularly when you're younger. You're not probably going to be doing what you're doing 20 years from now. And that's okay if you want it, but create you as the brand so you can take all of the investment of time. You're going to spend, what, 2 hours here tonight, a few bucks, network. You've invested the most valuable thing you have to listen to me, and that's 2 hours of your time, right? Don't waste it. Take a few cards. I have a thing on my iPhones. I take a picture of the phone. I put it into my iPhone. I also go and find out through LinkedIn. I'll follow you. 90% of the people follow me back, and now I've got you in my database for friggin' ever. Right? I don't know whether I'm going to do business with you, but I might do business with Jason. I'm a car freak. I race go-karts with my son on the weekend. NASCAR may be coming to Surrey. He's got some products. You never know, right? So we connect. It's the loose connection. I was talking to, there's that young fellow here. Can't see him in the audience yet. Robert. Right. And he asked me, so what's the secret to success? I said, loose connections. Most of the success that you will have as an individual isn't the strong connections you have. There's a great book that I read when I was in Minnesota on holidays in November. Why do you go to Minnesota in November? You go there because my daughter is a football freak and she wanted to see Brent Favre play live. So that was her grad present. So I flew to see Brent Favre get his ass kicked by the Green Bay Packers 30-3 and spend a whole bunch of money. It sucked. She loved it. But the point I was there and I got this book called Super Connect. And it's a great book if you want to understand how to use networking to build your business. And it will describe that most of the success that you will have comes through loose connections, right? And it's about networking without expectations. Because most people today go to a networking event and they talk, they don't listen, right? If you're talking, you're usually try to sell something. And man, I was the worst. I mean, I would go into a room and I would blitz through the grab cards and I would try to sell you what I was selling at the time. And that was okay, it was pretty good, it worked kind of. But that's not where success comes from. Success comes from building trust-based relationships over time, particularly with financial planners. Right? Why is that important? Because they're gonna have this influence of my money. And I love Kevin. Who's heard of Kevin O'Leary?
Yes.
Yeah, I love Kevin O'Leary. Cries like a baby when he loses capital. That's me, right? And he is cold, stone, brutal when it comes to his investments. And that's what a good financial planner will help you with. But who's going to control my money? Somebody who what? I like and I trust. Because at the end of the day, that's how you buy, right? It doesn't matter what you're selling. Nobody's going to buy if you're selling. They're only going to be ready. Where's Stanley? Okay, Stanley's an architect, okay? Stanley doesn't know that I'm in the market today for an architect for Blenz coffee. He didn't know that, right? Well, what did Stanley do? Showed up. Didn't have the expectation. Yeah, this is why you're here to try it. It's the loose connection. I will get him in touch with Larry Kanash, my Vice President of Development, and it'll be up to Stanley whether he's a fit for him. Doesn't know. It's called a lead. It's a pretty good lead. I met the president. He suggested I give you a call. Chances are Larry's going to get, George is not stupid. He's not going to send me a flake. There must be something there. I'll spend some time talking to him. Right? People buy from people they like and trust. And to build trust-based relationships takes what? Time. Right? And we're running out of it. That's the only thing. I have less today now than I did when I started this speech, and that's the most important thing I've got. So I don't waste it. I look at where my time can be best applied because I do a lot of stuff, right? And my stuff focuses on a couple of things. I want to do things that are fun. That's why I speak. I want to do things that don't make me stress. That's why I try to create a residual income stream, and the rest I just let happen to me, right? And I move forward without expectations. And I think that that's a different attitude. And you need to mature into that. And it's not chronological age, because I know my son is 26, he gets this, he's exactly like that, right? I got it a little older, but it's about how you want to view your success. And it's there for the take, and most people are lazy, right? Particularly in Vancouver. Are you shitting me? There's no way you can't make money in Vancouver if you read. Right? And that's the biggest problem. People don't get out there and they don't put themselves up and most importantly, they don't ask in a professional way of what they want. What do you need? What do you need? Right? And that's what I tend to do. I don't say that I've got a great business opportunity in the North Shore to sell you a franchise, because I don't know whether you're interested or not. But what are you looking for? Well, how can I help you? Right? And you build that circulating part. That's how I got here. I know a couple of you kind of. And how I got here was I stuck it out there. I put on Twitter that I do speak, and I've been to a couple of places. And what am I doing? I'm building my brand. I'm building some loose connections. And I don't know if there's a room in here that could be probably not my next wife, but certainly other business opportunities. I'm okay with that. In case she's going to send that out on social media, she's starting to look at my tweets. But my point is this: is that you just don't know who you're going to meet. It's like me and Stanley connecting, right? So how much time have I got?
Couple minutes.
Okay. And then we can do Q&A, right? Okay. So, and I've talked enough, and I could go on and on and on about a whole bunch of things, but more importantly is, what do you want to know? Right? You got me. Ask me anything. I'll tell you my truth. So, the thing I can leave you with right now is that you don't have to have the life you have if you want to change it, but the person that you have to really impress with life is the person you shower with, and that's typically yourself, unless you're still romantically inclined to it together. So my point would be really simply is, how do you want to impress yourself, and what do you need to do to improve your life, and what is it that you, and how do you define success, right? And it's a different way. Lady this morning said to one of my networking guys, I don't want to be a failure. She stood up and said her business wasn't working. It was touching. And I slapped for a minute, and I went, you know what? Shh. I said, you know, her name, I said, you have to reframe how you think about that. Because businesses fail, people don't. It's just a business. And if you personalize that, then that is the true failure. It's like the story, my greatest business failure was when the day I bounced checks on 200 employees in my corporate chain in Alberta during the meltdown of the early 80s. That was a bad day. You know, and I could have walked away and you know, the worst thing is having a mother say, you scumbag, you just bounced a check on my 15-year-old daughter in Sunlight Plaza. It's the lowest day of my life from a business perspective. But my bank called my loan, right? And I didn't have any money. And so it was a bad day. I survived. But I got up quickly and I moved forward. I did replenish all the checks and I went on to salvage my business because of my brother-in-law who sucked as an accountant. But so my point is about failure, don't personalize. And I've got lots of antidotes like that, but I will turn it over for any questions you might have. Is that appropriate?
Yeah,
thank you.
Sorry, I'm just tweeting away, so feel free to tweet under the hashtag ThinkThursdays, and let's take some questions. Does anybody have a question? You got George?
Yes. What's your name?
Amanda.
What do you do, Amanda?
I'm with the
Cool. Being around here too.
Are you? My question is, what inspires you on a daily basis? Do you have anything that you look up to, or that?
Yes, I do. I have what I call my guru list, and you can see it on my Twitter. And it ranges from famous people like Paul Krugman, who's an economist, Doril Robbini, Meredith Whitney, financial planner, she'll be like her one day, to Marilyn Anderson, to Howard Olson. These are local people. So people that I find, and what's do is I put them all together and I read my own newspaper. And so that's kind of what it is. I find people who I think are visionaries. They look to the future to help me, guide me in the future. And I'm always adding to that list. People who I think are intelligent, say things, and more importantly, people who don't give me dribble and think out of the box, and many contrarians. In particular, Nuru Rubini, who I did follow. I followed his advice, and that's why I didn't suffer any negative returns during the meltdown, because he saw it coming. Any other questions? Yes, back there. Your name is?
Julian.
What do you do? Oh, I know. You're with the chamber. Yeah.
I want to know who the most influential person in your life is, either at the present moment or over the sort of whole span of your life.
But the most influential person and why? Me. And because I live with me every day. And I have bad days, I have good days, and it's all that self-talk that you'll never hear from me, right? And about self-talk yourself. And I think that's the most, and it's certainly the most influential person of how I drive my life, right? Because I could go out and I could sit on the couch and I could watch a football game, or I could spend my Thursday night talking in Tri-Cities for what purpose, right? And so I think the individual that you live inside is the most influential person. Now there are people around me, like my wife and my children and my friends and my associates, that obviously have an influence in my life. And your brain trust, if you want, or your social trust. But I think the most influential person is the individual, and that's the person that you have to motivate. Make sense?
One more? Anybody? I have a question. What would you say, because you've started so many businesses, is there a common thread either in the challenge in the first couple of years that you have to kind of overcome, and how do you get through that?
Yes. Usually you start a business that has, it's like life, okay? And every business or person goes through 3 phases. No money and no time, right? That's where we all start. And then you get money, but no time. And then if you're lucky, you get time and money. And the challenge is going from that place to that place. And there's so many good businesses or good ideas around, and most fail because people can't sustain themselves through that process. And I've seen so many great businesses do that. And the most successful businesses are those businesses that you can persevere through. Particularly because, you know, it's easy, like I always say to somebody, particularly if you're 20 and you're not married, go drown in deep water, right? Because you don't have to, because I love advising young entrepreneurs that don't have the shackles of age, right? And I'm talking paradigms, things like paradigms, families, kids, and these are all important, don't get me wrong, you've got to sustain their life. But if you don't have any of those things when you're young, go for it. Go for it. And that's the secret. And I did. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. What's your name? Maria, what do you do?
I am currently launching a dispute resolution.
Yes, there's a lot of that going around.
Yes. So my question is, you talked about people that aren't shackled and that are young and that can sort of go into the deep water.
Yeah.
What about if you have some of those limitations? What would you recommend as somebody who's launching a new venture? What's the #1 best advice to give them about launching a company? And
Make sure that your partner is behind you. Then you don't have to worry about that. But if you have kids and a mortgage and responsibilities, I think what you have to do is you have to, typically what I would say is don't abandon your sustainable income while you're pursuing your new income. And that's what I say in my business, is I've had the pleasure, because I've had these sustainable businesses, feeding my passions or my ideas. And some of them are really stupid, but it sounds like you have a good idea. So I would say make sure whatever you're doing now, you protect it while you build your business in the future. I think that's a key. And I don't believe today that anybody should have one income. I always get praised when I see, who's in real estate? Yeah. You know, I always look at real estate guys. The first question is, do you own multiple rental properties as well? And I go, why would you put all your eggs in one basket? Because your livelihood is also dependent on all the things. Because when everything hits the fan, it all goes down, right? I'd be diversified. Whatever you're doing as a core business, diversify away. So if the friggin' real estate market, which crashed, which probably will shortly, then you know what happens when interest rates go up to 5 and 6%? You're screwed. Right? But I would also be what I would call a liquidation lawyer, because that would also be another counterbalance. My point is, yeah, I'm coming and going. Yeah. I like. Somebody said to me the other day, he goes, I said, he said, well, I want people that are, divorced couples. I said, well, that's a 3-piece. Sell the one I have, give them 2 more. Right? My point is, whatever your income base is, protect it while you're pursuing your other passion. And you know what? You can do both, right? And it really can if you want to. And the concept of life balance, that is a myth. There is no life balance, right? And anybody who tries to sell that is full of shit. Because if you want life balance, you're dead. And you will not be ultra successful in any definition if you have it. Who can, right? Because our whole society holds us back from becoming successful in so many ways. Because there's judgment, so you have to learn how to not to give a shit about what other people say, particularly the person close to you, right? Those are important. So that's my advice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.